Okay, welcome back to Beyond the Monsters. Today we have a Raven with us, and she's gonna kind of start from the root of how you even became what Raven Roulette, right?
Yeah.
Did I say that
Yeah.
right? Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
you did.
So she's gonna take us through her journey. So I'm gonna let
Yeah.
you just take it from here and dive in wherever you feel like starting. Trigger warning: sexual assault, rape, abuse, suicidal ideation, drug use, violence, and other explicit content.
Wow. So the journey, it's literally, I feel it takes me back to being an infant.
Okay.
My entire journey has really started, the base root, I feel, is growing up in a cult. So I grew up in a religious cult and my entire life.
Okay.
And I feel that was a huge suppression point for me. So I was convinced that everything was self control. And when in reality, it was just suppression of my life. And so, with that notion, I started seeing the world and like all these things people were doing. And I was so curious. And I was taught that curiosity was a really bad thing. And
Okay.
so I didn't have wow, this is really interesting. I feel like I don't know. I want to like interject right now because I feel like I don't know how to guide this with just like tell me your story. I'm going to be real
Well,
right now
so
because it's like very open
no,
ended for me.
there's so much. Yeah. So tell us. You're
Yeah.
fine. You're fine. Tell us what does the cult look like? Like what is this? What's going on? How old are you from when you can remember? Like, okay, there's something different here from everything else. And what were you taught completely in that cult? What did it look like for you?
So it's a really interesting point because this is the first time I've been like completely open with this because it's really sensitive and it's really raw. Um,
Absolutely.
so I grew up one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay.
And I had hesitated saying that because I don't like bashing what people go through. But at the end of the day, is my story is my story, right?
Right.
So I grew up very restricted. I could only hang out with people that were of the religion. I could only date people of the religion. There was like the standard morality of no sex before marriage, no drugs, like good principles, but it came into everything that I taught was very conditional. Believing that I was unconditionally loved when it was conditional love. And being in trouble multiple times for just wanting to play with children that were of school. I was not allowed to watch any movies that were from Disney, any movies that were not above rated G. My music was chosen for me, my movies were chosen for me. If I got caught using a curse word, I would immediately have to talk to one of the church elders, go in the back room. And any sin that I did of kissing a boy or wanting to go out on a date or kissing a girl, because I'm queer and that's a big no no. So that was
Yes.
extremely shunned. I was constantly in the back room of the church from church elders of having to open up any and everything about my sexuality, what I did, how I did it by a table of men asking me how I received sex, what I did and what I viewed, and did I receive pleasure in different ways. When I'm like, this is 4 to 5 different men talking to an 18-year-old at the time woman who this is not safe. This isn't safe. It's open up your trauma. And it was we were drilled and conditioned that if we weren't the religion, that we were going to die an eternal death and we would have no hope whatsoever. And so that
And your
affected my
parents were fully involved in the church this whole time, both mom and
Yeah.
dad, and okay.
Yeah, so fully involved. So my dad was a church elder. My mom was an elder's wife. We were known in the pedestal of the church as like, this is the family with a white picket fence. When at home, my mom dealing with multiple personality disorder and my father not knowing how to fully be an emotionally available father for me, and everything deconstructing at home. And I was the youngest, so I was the one that acted everything out. I was the black sheep. So I went out to explore a completely different world of meeting boys because my father told me I was a disappointment at 12 years old. And I remember looking at him and I went, okay, so I'm going to go where I'm wanted. And so that trauma response is really the kicker for me into going where I shouldn't have been, according to the religion, right?
Okay.
And then that is when I started to get involved with dating gang members because they had authority. So dating
How old
gang,
are you? How old are you now?
at that time, I was about 13, going into 14 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
At that time was taking wine coolers from the back fridge of my mom's fridge and drinking them and drinking them at night right before I'd go to bed just because I wanted to numb, because I was like, this life is fucking fake. I'm literally told how to be, told how to dress, told how to think. And then if I questioned anything, I was wrong. If I questioned just how to question, then it means I'm doubting God and God is unhappy with me.
Okay.
I couldn't be who I was, that because I loved women as well too, but that was shunned. So I felt so suppressed that I decided to go elsewhere where I was wanted. And then those men ended up being involved, heavy involved into gangs and involved into drugs. And so that's kind of like this like initiation portion. Then like those next few blocks of my life, it led up to that.
Okay. So you just wanted to belong at this point
Yeah.
in your teen years, anywhere,
Yeah.
because you were so, gosh. I mean, and I've known a few people that were in that religion too that are no longer in it, and the stories are just mind blowing.
Yeah, it's I was disfellowshipped from it, like where you're publicly announced. So I was publicly announced from a platform in front of 200 people that, and then I'll share my birth name here too. So my birth name is
Okay.
Sarah Gillette. And because I feel it's
Okay.
very important to
Yes.
show my mask, right? To show behind the
Right.
mask that Sarah Gillette is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses and she is marked to not be associated with. But I was just trying to live my authentic truth at the time. I just wanted to be a girl as an artist and I wasn't understood. And that happened 3 times. And I went back 3 times because I was
So
like,
do they like shun you?
they,
Okay.
they
Just
shun
no
you.
one should talk to you.
No one
to
can
you.
talk to you.
Okay.
And my family, they can talk to you on a need to know basis. If I lived with them, then they can converse about medical issues, important matters, but no heart to heart conversations, no compassion, nothing about God whatsoever, because it's you and God and that's it. And no one else can help you. And until I found myself repentant, I had to write a letter, give it to the elders, and then they would consult God to see if God forgave me of my actions, then I could be welcomed back. And in the meantime, I had no community. I still couldn't associate with anyone outside the religion. So I could go to work, come home, pray, read the Bible, and be in hopes that God would accept me maybe a year later to come back.
And your parents during this time, and maybe it's just because they don't know what they don't know kind of thing.
Yeah.
But were they following everything that they were supposed to do as far as you went? Like as far as I'm not we're not talking to her unless it's medical and this.
Yes.
We're not having
Yeah.
a regular conversation. So you were living there.
Yeah. It was to a T.
Like this.
It was like they would have family over, like my brothers and sisters, and I would have to go in the other room. I couldn't associate with my family. I couldn't talk with if they lived down the street. So, and then again, it's being in isolation. And while I was going through this, trying to come back to the religion, And when I was like 18, I was like, dude, like, fuck this. Like, I can't do this shit anymore. And so I said that multiple times, but then I was like, oh, because I got involved in drug addiction so much. And then I was like, I need to get sober. And I was like, the religion's the only way, right? Because that's what I
Right.
knew from my grandparents. It's indoctrinated in my lineage. So, and then also I was like, well, this is all I'm good for. I'm only as good as a drug addict, a hooker, and a whore, or I'm only as good as a religious, indoctrinated little girl who, yes, father, and go on my knees, and that's it. And so I was
Yeah.
like stuck in limbo of all these things. So I would say the beginning was like 15 when I really had a realization that I was like, fuck no, I don't like this,
Okay.
you know. And then it led to being 17, running away, stealing my sister's car.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was like, if you want to ask questions about that, absolutely. I'll tell you that too.
Yeah. Tell us a story.
So I was working at a skate shop building skateboards, and I was like living a double life. I was having a boyfriend on the side, but yeah, a really good little girl with the ruffled socks and the wench heels going to church with my knees covered during the day.
Okay.
And one day I got invited by this guy I met after I snuck out of my house one night, exchanged numbers, and I was like, I'll go to Riverside for you. And took my sister's car to work, and I decided to not go back home. And I stole my sister's car. And I was like, fuck this. I went out to Riverside, was supposed to go to a rave, and I was loaded on God. I was high as fuck on weed, meth, ecstasy. Met this gentleman, met this guy. Can I say the F word on here?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. I was like,
trucker mouth over here. Yeah. Yeah. You can.
I was like, fucked all night. I've been
Yeah.
up for 2 hours, 2 days, and decided to drive back. And I fell asleep at the wheel. I crashed in the center divider, woke up from the crash, pulled aside where Tyler Mall is in Riverside out here, which is ghetto as fuck. And I had no gas in the car. I don't know what the car looks like. And I black out in the car while the engine's still running. Hours later, daylight comes, and I have two gangbangers sitting on the hood of my sister's car. Oh, wow. Yeah, there we go. And I was like, I'm for sure going to die right now. My phone was dead. I had no money. I had no gas in the car. I shifted. I'm in my rave hooker gear. And then the guy sitting on the car, I see a gun in his back pocket. And I was like, this is it. And he turned around. He looked at me and he told me, get out of the car. And I was like, I'm dead. I get out of the car and he looks at me and he goes, why are you here? Why are you here? He's like a skinny little white girl. What are you doing here? And I literally opened up my entire life story. I was like, I ran away from my parents because they were Jehovah's Witnesses of the religion. And he stopped in his tracks. He goes, that's how I grew up too. And I was like, no way. He shared his story of being in the religion. And he looks at me. He goes, this is what we're going to do. Him and his gangbanger buddy went, got gas from my car, gave me $3, filled my tank up, drove back. And I was in awe. I didn't die. And then I landed at my friend's place. And then I got filed as a missing person because I was 17 at the time. Okay. Had to go down to the police station. And the police were like, you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I was just like, I just literally wanted to run away from my family because I hate the religion. Like,
right.
You know, and then thank God I wasn't 18 because I would have been full prison.
Right.
Went back and it was my parents missed me. They love me, but it's right back to the religious indoctrination. It's like, okay, well, what's wrong? What's wrong? Like, we have to, now you're in trouble. Instead of the compassion, it was the, what's wrong? Not how can I be here for you? How can I listen?
Right.
And then that was tail spinning me on my drug addictions, putting myself in shitty environments where I had been brutally raped at least 2 times in one night 4 times in a week. And it was set up by my gangbanger boyfriend at the time because I didn't have experience.
What does
So,
that look like? Like, as far as where is he sending you?
so
Like,
we had a mutual friend that was in the gang, and I love that I'm not hiding this human's identity anymore, which is beautiful because of many reasons, because they have no power over me, and that's why we
yeah.
share this story. Um, my ex Arion decided to send me to my friend's house. He would get like shoes from me from the skate shop, right? And we just hang out as homies. And I am this still like I'm no clue about gang banging. I think I'm just with badass guys who have guns.
Right.
Like,
Right.
so I snuck out of my house one night to give the shoes to our friend. And I called Ariana. I was like, hey, I'm going over there. I'm gonna drop off shoes. He never called me back. And I instantly knew that something was up. Went to this guy Eric's house and I get offered a drink. We drink Sparks. You remember Sparks?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus, Sparks. He had drugged me. So he had put GHB in there. And then the next thing I know, I'm being taken into the bedroom and there's guns all over the counter shelf. And I'm being stripped down. And I try to call my boyfriend and it goes to voicemail. Um, Puts me on the bed so I can look in the mirror and so I could watch
God.
myself suffer. Holding a gun to my head as he's fucking me. And there is the part of me that was like, I just have to do this so I don't die.
Right.
And I have a very strong mind to where no matter how many drugs I used to be on at the time, I could come to a cognizance where I was like, I have to survive. So I tried calling. I was like, try calling people. He threw me down into the bathroom, locked me in there, laughing hysterically at me. And keep in mind, I didn't remember all this until 13 years later after all this happened.
Well, especially if you were drugged by G.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You couldn't even move much, I would
I
think,
could
right?
not move at all.
Function, yeah.
At all. And brought me back in the room. And I remember this is by the grace of God. I made up some excuse and I looked at him and I said, my parents know where I'm at. I need to leave. And he picked me up. He threw me down the flight of stairs outside. I'm rolling down the stairs and I found my way to the front curbside of the town I lived in. And I called another friend I had to pick me up as well. He picked me up. I don't know how I told him. And then he pulled over in a parking lot and did the same thing. He raped me. I looked at him and I was like, I can't. And he's like, you're fine. And he was drunk that night. You're fine. You'll be fine. I know you want it. And I at that point, I remember bawling, crying, and I was like, I might as well give up because this is what death feels like. Like, this is it.
Right.
Dropped me off in the alleyway of my parking lot of where I lived.
And this is someone you thought was kind of a friend.
No, this is someone who was a very religious, high-standing human and a paramedic, saves lives that I knew for an entire year and a half. Him and I had formerly dated, but we became really good friends. And he dropped me off in the alleyway. I don't know how the fuck I got back in my house, snuck through the window, woke up the next day at 17 years old. No clue what happened. I get in the shower and I look down and I'm covered in bruises. Fortunately, nothing was here. I covered everything up, went to fucking school, and I never told anyone until I was 23. And I called my boyfriend and I was like, Eric did this shit to me. You need to go kill him. Like, and I straight up was like, I know what you do. You can kill him. Mm-hmm. And he's like, it was on Thanksgiving, 2007. He goes, baby, you needed more experience. Because he was the one who took my virginity. He goes, you needed more experience. He goes, and I couldn't give it to you.
Oh my God.
And from then it was, and I felt at the time I couldn't go to the police because he lived down the street. Like, you're going to come and you're going to kill my family.
Right.
Like, and so from then I moved to Texas. Yeah. So that's a huge chunk of what the biggest spiral of my life was. And then I just started acting out like, this is what I deserve. So I'm worthless. And so I just deserve to be having worthless behavior because that's all I am. I'm just someone who is raped and someone who is there.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. So young.
Yeah. Moved to Texas.
So who do you go to Texas with?
So I have an older brother. That my parents gave up for adoption when they were 17. And so he wasn't raised in the religion. So he was outside of the religion. So I was like, oh my God, I have family.
Someone,
because they're not going to fucking talk to me. I'm living a fucking muck. And I actually I want to get my fucking life together, but I can't be around my family. I got to be around my other brother to help me get my shit together, but see me and not shun me.
Right. Like, and someone has to understand me.
Someone. Yeah. And right. So I told him the situation. I was like, I need help. And he's like, move out here. I'll help you. You can move in with us. He was married. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. I was dating another new individual at a time. He had just got out of prison for 8 years. Choose him really well. So he was an ex-convict as well. Okay. He was going to get his parole transferred. I moved to Texas. Called 2 weeks later. My, at the time, boyfriend was back in prison. And so I lived in Texas and I was like, okay. I was like, well, I'm here. Didn't have him. And so then I spiraled really heavy again on my drug use. I was doing coke, I was doing Molly, I was doing ecstasy, I was doing heroin, I was doing meth. I became being a stripper at night, working in the grocery store during the day so I could still keep up like both worlds.
Right.
I ended up in Texas, the heaviest of drug uses, having friends die in my arms of overdoses, having 2 heart attacks and 12 overdoses by the age of 19.
Oh my God.
Having to be strapped down in a bed because I was convulsing and seizing so much, and I coded in the hospital room at 19 and woke up from the bed and no one was there. And I was like, wow. And that shit still didn't get me sober.
Right.
It was like, again, this is all I'm good for.
Well, you have all this trauma that you're carrying.
Yeah.
From childhood on, you know, how are you supposed to process anything or deal?
Well, and I think, and that's just it, because it's like also in society, it's you're looked at with a drug addiction as like, you're a piece of shit. When this is an illness. Like, I need help. This is an illness. Like, don't go and fucking send me to jail. Like, don't help me. Like, for the ones who want to be helped.
Right.
But it was like, in order for me to be helped, and I'd have to convert back into a cult. And I was like, but how the fuck do I do that? Because like, I have to go and conform, and you're telling me to suppress who I am in order to become who I'm not.
And that's actually the root of your problems.
Yes.
Is that you're supposed to go back there. That's what caused everything.
Well, that's
like the huge snowball effect. Wow.
It's, that was Texas, and I moved into Austin. I was there for 2 years, in and out of it. So you were
with your brother?
I was with my brother.
Okay.
And my brother found out that I was hiding my drug use again because I was battling it, and he found some pills in my drawer, and they had kids, and was one of the lowest moments of my life, because he was like, are you kidding me? He's like, I have children and I have this, and I was just like, oh my God. Like, your kids could have picked this up. And I still shake nowadays because I'm like, what would happen? So he was like, you can't live here. Like, you can't live.
And was he an actual, like, good guy?
Oh, my God.
More normal?
My brother's amazing. He is like, he is kind. He is compassionate. He is honest. He is upfront. He is sometimes a hard-headed, like all of us, right? But that's
Right.
why he's successful. Like, he believed in me so much, and I broke his heart. But he never once told me I was a disappointment to him. He was like, get your shit together. I love you, but you got to do this on your own. And
Right.
because he did that, it was the best thing for me because I was forced in a position to do it.
Right.
And so I still didn't do it at the time though, because I sunk
Right.
deeper into to drug addiction. And
Well,
then
I mean, at that point, where's your way out? Who's there to help you? Now you just like by your own doing, but you still just lost your whole support system.
Yeah.
Which is your brother.
Yeah.
You know, and probably the family. And what else would you do? It's really hard when people are that low and that far in to just go, oh, I'm going to pull myself out of this. I'm going to get clean all by myself. And it just doesn't work that way.
No, and I think it's especially too because being an undiagnosed autistic, like I didn't get
Yes.
diagnosed until I was later. So being younger, especially when we're neurodivergent, we literally have a completely different synapses, and like we go to the addiction for the dopamine high, not because we want an addiction, but it's because like I need dopamine because I can't produce it. So it was like my safety net of like, I have to be an addict because this is the only thing that gets me fucking there. And it
Right.
wasn't because I wanted to ruin my life. It was because my brain said that's what was right.
Right. So you probably really struggled with depression.
Oh my God.
Bad.
Depression, suicidal ideology, like fantasizing and writing out how I was going to kill myself. And like I loved it because it was, I respond off of intensities. I do still nowadays, but in a healthy way. Like I have a container for it. But it was, I felt good being intensity because I was so numb or too overstimulated that I needed to feel nothing or everything at the same time.
Right.
So I caved when I was in Texas after I had pneumonia, bronchitis. I was dancing on stage and my eardrum ruptured. And I was bleeding all out of one side at $105, 105 pounds. I'm 65 pounds now. So I was 105, hella addict. And I was like, mommy, I need my mommy.
Right.
So I call my dad after 3 years of him not hearing from me. And I was like, I need to come home. I was like, I have nobody else. And I gave myself a choice. It was either join the military or go back to my family. Right?
Yeah.
Two choices.
Right.
So I knew either or, but I was like, if I go back to my family, then I can sort of come out again.
Right.
Military, I'm like, I'm stuck.
You're stuck. Right.
But so I went back to my family, went back. My dad came again, like, even though they're, in my opinion, so fucking brainwashed, but what they know is what they know. That's my opinion.
Right.
They show up for what they know. So why would I hold resentment against for what they know?
Yeah, they don't know any better. They're brainwashed too.
Yeah, you 100%. So it's like they're showing love for how they know how to show love.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be mad at that. At the time, went back to the religion for a year and a half. Yeah, it took me a year to get reinstated into the religion from doing work.
So now, like, what are you doing during this time, during this year? Like, what's going on and what are you having to prove?
During that year was, it's funny enough, I became a trainer. So this is February 4th, 2013 is my recovery date. Isn't that a trip for today?
Oh, yes.
Yay!
Congratulations.
12 years.
It's amazing. My husband just had his 10-year on the 30th.
Oh
January
my gosh.
30th. Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah.
Congratulations, husband. It's so that
Wow,
year.
good for you.
Thank you. It's that year looked like massive schizophrenia. I was extremely schizophrenic for at least a couple months. I couldn't leave the house. I would rock and knock, and again, not knowing I'm autistic, I went complete cold turkey off of every single drug. And I look back, I mean, I did what I did, but I was like, oh, that was fucking dangerous.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that.
No,
Yeah.
because I was doing sleep paralysis, no idea what it was. Sleep paralysis every night, psychotic 2 weeks of no sleep, having to go into one-on-one behavioral therapy of like, I need to be in a psych ward. Like, I need to be in a straitjacket. Like, I'm
Right.
going to kill myself and everybody else around me, like hallucinating while in reality at the same time, and literally going, am I ever going to be normal? Like, am I ever going to be able to have a conversation like this?
Right.
So the whole time to come back to the religion would be reading the Bible like multiple times through the day, like literally like reciting it, doing check-ins with the elders of like where I've worked on my forgiveness of sins, again, of like what a sin is, you know, and obedience to go to the Bible meetings 3 times a week, come in late so you don't talk to people, leave early so you don't talk to people, go home, do your Bible homework, write your journals, repent to God, go and do work. But it was like in a place where I couldn't have any association with anybody else. Then I come home. So it was work, behavioral counseling, therapy, church, literally nothing else. I had a zero social aspect. I couldn't have any community. Their
Total
reasoning,
prisoner.
yeah, because their reasoning was like, well, you need to develop your relationship with yourself, not based upon anybody else, anyone else around you. At the time, I was like, absolutely, totally understand it, like 100%. I wanted to do anything to be accepted.
Right.
I just wanted to be loved. And it was hard for my parents to tell me they loved me because, according to my mother, Satan marked me with my tattoos, you know, so I'm like permanently marked. And so that whole year was pretty much just a very rigid, strict schedule.
Yeah.
And like the best thing that came out of it was my sobriety. Fucking hell yeah. Sobriety and like relearn my journaling and new shadow tools, how to really, really shadow elements of like art, painting, dancing, working out, therapy. I became a trainer that year. Without that year, I wouldn't have been given all these tools
Right.
to now that I still incorporate myself today, you know. And then I got reinstated into the religion and I was there for almost 2 years after that, completely celibate. That was one of the hardest things.
Yeah, that just sounds crazy.
So it's like celibate and you can't touch yourself. Like in the religion, there's no self-pleasure. Like it's a sin. There's a book about masturbation. Like you're given a young people ass book, you have to read it. Like if you touch yourself, masturbation, then like that's you and God, and you risk not entering into the new kingdom if you touch yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did it. But then I met another man. And that was my addiction was men, because I was like, oh, I can manipulate you.
Right.
I can get anything I want. Drugs, I won't touch drugs, but you're human, you're legal. This is great.
Right.
Then I ran away again. I wrote a note to my parents.
You're how old now?
20. Okay, so I went back into recovery in 2013, so I was 23. So 2005, 15. What year are we? 2015.
Yeah, or 15.
Hello.
25. Yeah, 25.
Yeah, 2015.
Okay.
I wrote a letter. I was like, I know one day I'll come back, but not now. And I literally went, I'm not good enough to be here. It was all my self-worth. So lived with the tattoo artist, got some great tattoos in that whole fucking year being with
A positive came out of that.
Right. The positive came out of that. But then I went right back into the lifestyle. It's interesting enough was I didn't do drugs again. I didn't do any hard drugs again. It was just.
Why do you think? What stopped you? Because you probably had access to anything you wanted.
Oh, I had 100%. I could get anything I wanted. The reason why I feel I didn't, it was because it was just one more thing that I would have to change if I decided to come back to the religion.
Okay.
For me, it was easier to say goodbye to the men because you're a physical thing. I don't have object permanence with autism. And so if you're not in my sight, you're out of mind. You don't exist to me. I don't give a fuck about you.
Right.
But when it comes to drugs, because it creates the dependency and the physical this, I was like, I don't want to go through that again, because it's just going to be one more thing that I have to repent for. And I did it. Bottom line was, I didn't want to have to tell somebody I did drugs again because I just didn't want the shame. It wasn't because I wanted to stay sober. It was like I just didn't want to have to have the shame and the guilt with going back to these church elders after they already asked me many questions of like, did I orgasm with women? Like, oh, that, yeah, like all this shit. I was like, this is one less thing I have to tell them, you know?
That's pretty amazing,
Yeah.
though, that you were able to do it for those reasons, because there are people that have the worst detox they could ever imagine, everything, and they're like, I'd never do it again, and they just do. They do it again and again and again, and that doesn't click for some reason. But the fact that you had that much self-control is pretty fucking amazing.
Thank you. And like,
No, it really is.
now that you bring that up too, I really do feel I genuinely, like, even today, nowadays, like, every time I went out into doing drugs when I was younger, it was like I went in hella harder and hella deeper because I was like, oh, that was my threshold. Let's push the envelope now. For me, it was genuinely like, no, I'm going to die. Like, I'm going to die if I stick another needle in my arm.
Right.
Like, I couldn't anymore, so I'd have to shoot up between my toes. So it's like, if I do this, there is no more. And so it was interesting that, like, it was like that one thing that I wouldn't do. I would do everything else. I would steal, I would embezzle, I would cheat, I would do shady shit.
Right.
I'm not gonna do drugs.
You're like, I'm too damn smart
I
for that
have
now.
limits. I'm sinning enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then
Yeah,
now that
I
I'm in
love
my
that.
like mid-20s at that time.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the story fucking continues.
Let's keep on going, girl.
Story continues essentially is at that rate, I was like out, and then it didn't work out with the boyfriend. And things were kind of going steady for the most part. There was nothing insane and crazy. I just really immersed into the fitness atmosphere.
Okay.
Because I was a kick-ass trainer. I did so for 12 years. I still do training nowadays. 12 years, ran gyms. So it was like, I'm keeping up this image, which I loved because I was like, oh my God, like I have my story of recovery. Like, this is my story of recovery. Like, after being sober or drug addict to sober I went from 105 pounds and I gained all my weight back up to 185 to 190 pounds. And then I lost it all again. So I had my story. I was like, oh my God, I did this. I overcome schizophrenia. I overcome fucking drugs. I've overcome multiple overdoses, people dying in my arms, like the craziest shit that could ever happen in my life. Why am I not using my story to help people?
Right.
So I just immersed in being a trainer and like doing that and helping people turn their mess into a message. That was like this huge turning point for me where I was like, oh my God, I can help people with this. This is really cool. And then with that, as a life of a trainer and also still being away from the religion, again, when I was 27, started to miss my family immensely. So I went back. I was like, okay, like I repent. I think I was 27, 28, I forget. I was like, I'm here. Like, we're going to do it. I cut everyone off of my life because I developed a life outside of that again.
For sure.
Like, for the 5th time of my life, and I cut it off. Right. But again, intensities, I was like, yeah, we're done. Intensity, dopamine hit, empowered. And then it's the dopamine hit, and then you're like, I'm alone.
Yeah.
So I did that.
Each time you would go back, was your family always like receptive to it? Like, as long as you're repenting and as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, was it kind of like, oh yeah, come back home?
It was every time though, it was more hesitant because like I had gone through my processing of more like the healing and the acceptance of what I'd done. But when they found out things of what I'd done, so it's like, they didn't know how to detach. They didn't know how to have like, you are having your experience. We're having our experience. We're observing your experience. But everything in my family was so enmeshed. It's like, what you're going through, I go through. If I don't feel the pain that you're feeling and vice versa, then you don't have empathy. Like, I was taught you had to be so immersed in the pain of another individual, hence created codependency and anxious attachment styles in me.
Right.
And no identity. no self-identity, because we were encouraged, if you had an identity, you would question God, and then you would find out the truth behind the cult. So when I came back, it was just I missed my family because my dad's really sick. Wow. And I wanted to be around when my dad dies. And I was like, I don't care. I'll come back and I will put my life on hold just to be around. And I did. And then it came to a point where I was suicidal again. Like, I love who I love. I'm queer as fuck. I love women. I love trans. I'm pansexual. Like, I can't control who I love. And being in the religion, I wanted to get married and have a kid. But it's like, I'm marked. I'm so different. I am a former drug addict. I'm tattooed. And so no one can love me. And so again, came to that boiling point where I was like, the hell? And so I'm in therapy this whole time. I've been in therapy since I was 17, in and out of addictions. And I'm telling my therapist, and she's like, what do you want? And I was like, well, my family. She's like, no.
Was this the first time someone actually asked you that and meant it?
Yeah.
They wanted to really know.
They wanted to know. Because personal interest, there was a surface interest in life. It was like, but personal interest of to hear someone's truth, that wasn't encouraged in how I was grown up.
Right.
Let me ask about you according to what God wants. No, dude, God is in all of us. What do I want? And so I was like, I want my family, but I don't want to live the religion. I want to celebrate holidays. I want to go and find the love of my life somewhere else. I want to go and be an artist. I want to perform, but I can't because it's self-glory. If I wanted to perform and be famous, it was like almost illegal in the religion because you're giving glory to yourself, not God. I'm like, I'm giving glory to God because of his gifts he's given me, right?
Right.
So I sat in that question, and I had gotten plant medicine, interesting enough, introduced to me, microdose mushroom therapy. Okay. And that was introduced in therapeutic sessions. And I was like, hell no, I'm a drug addict. You're crazy. We're not doing that. Like,
right.
You sick person. And I was like, don't you know who I am? And she's like, I don't know who you are. Do you know who you are? And I was like, fuck. So
do I have to answer that?
I sat in that. And I talked to some friends who were veterans and who went through microdose therapy under like guidance and under like medicinal things. And I was like afraid just because of the stigma, because I would speak in sober communities and I'm like, how can I be sober? Right. And then again, I was like, okay, we're going to lean in. I did a 2-hour session of mushroom therapy, microdose mushroom therapy. And I was asked some of the most intense questions about what I want in my life, where I want, what is my truth. I've never been asked what my truth is because growing up, being Jehovah's Witness in that cult is, this is the truth. So I hated that word. I'm like, so I refrained from my truth growing up.
Right.
I went through 2 hours of a microdose therapy session, and I went through essentially 20 years of therapy. Breaking constructs, feeling these things that I had blocked because I was just afraid of the emotion. Once I felt the emotion, you got to feel to heal. And I was like, oh my God, you're giving me hope. And then all of a sudden this layer was removed where I was like, oh shit, I'm now cognizant and competent now instead of incognizant incompetence where
right.
I have to make a choice because I was hit up against the wall again where I wanted to shove a needle in my arm. I'm going to Bible meetings, and this is during COVID. I was, which I respect everyone for their choice, but for me, I was like, I have a certain opinion. I am not doing this. I am not doing that. And because I chose not to do certain things out of love for myself, I was again shunned from my family. You can't come over. You can't do this. And I was like, okay. So I told my family, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And it was kind of like a passing thought. It was like, okay, Sarah's doing her thing again. She's acting out. What's wrong? I'm like, nothing's wrong. You're not listening to me.
Right.
And so during COVID,
and now you have feelings, real feelings.
Now I have feelings.
Shit. Yeah.
And I'm doing my training during COVID, doing outside training, doing all this, trying to survive, like all of us, right? Mental health issues. I feel a lot of us either came out stronger or came out worse. We're like, how can I get creative? And how can I overcome this? For me, I don't quit. I never quit. I might slow down. Bitch, you're going to have to run me over with a semi. And even then, I'll probably develop wings and fly. Like, so I was like, I'm gonna have to do this. So I went over to my family's. I put on, like, I did all their protocols they wanted me to do because I knew, I was like, I think this is gonna be the last time I see him. Like, literally in my life, because I had to choose me. I had done plant medicine ceremonies. I had sat in deep therapeutic sessions with my shaman. I had done ayahuasca, and I had grand openings, genuinely, of the integration of the lessons I learned with guides. And it was a clear answer that I was going to kill myself if I stayed in the religion. So I had to choose my life. So I said essentially goodbye to my dad. Without him thinking I'm saying goodbye to him. Mm-hmm. I packed my stuff up. I lived with my sister. I packed my stuff up in the house while my sister was at work. And I left. And I told,
knowing that you were going to be done. Right?
I knew this was it. This was not the, I'm going to go back again. I sat and I was like, this is my decision. I have to live my truth. I can't. Did not go through all that pain in my entire life to be put in a box and to be shamed for who I am, that God gave me who I am. So I wrote them a message, and it was empowerment. And I said, I love you, but I'm not coming back. I said, I am leaving, but it is up to you if you want to talk to me or not. I am making the choice to leave. I will be in Orange County still, but I can't do this. And then they sent multiple church elders after me, like knocking on the door, constant phone calls. And in their beliefs was to save me, because I am a blood lineage witch as well too. And so that was the biggest fear of my family, because I tapped into that. God has given me gifts of being clairsentient and a medium. And that was a big no-no in my family. And I tapped into it because I knew I could help people in that way as well. And it's been since then that I took off. And so I had to
Were you hoping deep down that your parents would just show up? You know, they're sending the elders, they're doing all these things. But,
wow.
You know, like I even know, like my mom was only 67, died through COVID, but she was like, I didn't have a good life. I was in foster homes, group homes, all the shit, addictions, all the things. And I remember, like, even after she died, and I hadn't talked to her for like 10, 11 years, you know, removed myself from my whole family. But I remember, like, when she died, even as much as I was removed from her, I still always felt like she's going to come and realize all the things she did one day, and that she still has her daughter and her granddaughters and all these things. And then it just like never happened. So I'm just wondering, like, for you, were you ever wishing like they would just be the parents that they should be?
You know,
not what they were taught to be.
Yeah. You know, it's like, it's such an interesting question with that, because I generally feel like the split yes and no. Because for me, it's like their religion is, it's in their blood, and they don't care what they have to do. They will be the religion because their hope is in that. They will, you know, the niceness of people, they're like, there's hope. And I look at them, I'm like, I'm a huge, hopeful, optimistic person, but like, I'm telling you, I'm like, they're not going to change. Like, and that's not me being like negative.
Right.
But
it's reality.
Yeah, it's the reality. I had the hopes. I genuinely was like, can't you just hug me and say, I love you? But I would get the messages from my dad. You'll be welcomed back if you change. you are loved unconditionally if you A, B, and C. And I'm
If.
like,
That
that's
if.
I'm like,
Yeah.
condition. God shows unconditional love. If we're made in God's image, what gives you the goddamn right to put conditions on God's unconditional love? If Jesus died for all of our sins,
Right.
then what,
Full manipulation.
it's the manipulation. So yeah, I had hoped the first year was probably extremely hard for that, because I mean, it was the loneliness, but I was fortunate enough that I had built a community outside, the fitness community, the health community, and my recovery community. I'm speaking at wellness seminars for Cisco on sharing my life story of recovery, being able to impact multiple people, run fitness classes of 60 people, and one-on-one life coach people, because I just said this the other day, that I have gone through so much pain in my life to truly, in multiple ways, every fucking way I could think imaginable, to truly be able to show compassion to individuals, to give them hope that they're going to be okay. And so the third year without my family, first year was hard. Second was like chilling, I'm in a groove. Third year was very tumultuous because for the first time in 16 years, ended up in this is like towards the tail end of all my trauma stories. A very, very extremely manipulative and abusive relationship that actually just ended a year and a half ago. And I am a huge proponent. I work with veterans and Marines. My current partner is a God-given gift, beautiful hearted Marine. And I will live and die by that human for what they do. So I always want to clear that for people so they don't think I'm like bashing Marines because I love them.
So they don't come for you.
No, this shit human happened to be a Marine. We'll put it that way.
Right.
That's, not what they do. So I was in the depths of loss. And side note is I'm a pro dominatrix as well. So
I kind of learned that. I'm like, I'll tell my daughter, I'll be like, yeah, I think I saw too much of Raven today.
There's her butt.
There's her booty. Yeah.
So I'm a pro dominatrix, and I also work in the mental and emotional and wellness health of bringing awareness how to be consensual, how to be safe, how to use your voice, how to be ethical in the exploration of your own pleasure without guilt and without shame. And I work immersively to help people overcome past traumas, to bring in a new frame with exposure consenting therapy. So that's my main forte of what I do.
Because like you're talking about like consent and all those things, it's trust, trying to trust.
That's
which
it.
is so hard.
Because
you've had trauma. Yeah, so hard.
So many of us have been through shit experiences. That's why I got into it, because I was like, I didn't have trust. I don't have this. And I love exploring crazy, kinky, taboo things, but only with safe people in the confines of my safety. And there's so many humans that wanted that. So I was like, let me be a voice and a guide to show you can overcome the mental constructs and the nervous system imprinting of your past trauma in now a safe setting with talking to your partner, using your words, knowing you have the power to say, actually, I'm not comfortable with that. Can we recalibrate? So that's my main.
And they respect it.
Absolutely. Respecting it. Consent and ethicality is what we teach. And that's how I show up in the industry. So with that,
how did you get in that? How did you fall into that?
So little quick shoot backs. When I was 18, I started going to goth clubs, and I went to a vampire night up in LA, and I was like, oh, this is fucking cool. I was like, you're my people. You're weird. You're creepy. You're goth. And like, there's a taboo way to experience pleasure that's not shameful, because religion, if it's not missionary vanilla, then it's a sin.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, I can explore. So I got into that, just exploring sexually. And then also genuinely at the time, be very honest, is I hated men, and I saw a path unethically at the time, hence why I do it ethically now, to take power away from men and torture them. Gotcha. And then be like, hey, I want you to beat me, because it was consenting for them at all times. I never did it unconsentingly. Right. But my intention was like, oh, like, fuck yeah.
Powerful.
Fuck these past two people who did this to me. It was powerful to me, instead of me going, wow, I'm holding space for your experience.
Yes.
And that's what it should be, right? So I got that being younger. So I was just around the industry doing it, doing sessions here and there. And then
Okay.
it wasn't until, because I'm 35 now, it wasn't until like really in my like beginning of my 30s that I like immersed into doing Dom sessions, doing it completely ethically because I did so much depth shadow work and footwork in my recovery and so much karmic backstepping of like, I got to undo all this karma. Oh my God. How do I
Right.
show up as an ethical person? Because I came to see I don't like it when someone makes me feel shameful or bad just for what I like. I
Right.
don't I don't want to tell someone no and they'd be like, "Oh, are you sure?" Ew. No.
Right. Right.
So when that came to the forefront
Back
and
to the old no means no,
no, and
right?
that's a complete sentence, right?
Yeah. Right.
So that really is what lit everything up for me. Like in the beginning of 32, like I was double lifing it again in the religion.
Hmm.
But I was like, oh my God, like this can really help people. Like just being a safe container, being like,
Right.
hey, I have a taboo of like, I like hot wax poured on my leg because like heat sensory is amazing. I like bondage because it feels like a hug. And I was never hugged as a child. And I just want to feel loved and hugged for an hour of my day with a hood and bondage on when society thinks I'm like torturing this person. And when it's not accepted in society, but I get this opportunity to have a person in front of me just shut their brain off for an hour and trust me that I'm safe. Oh my God. After an
Right.
hour, they don't feel the need to control. They've forgotten all the pain that they're in. They forgot of the fights that they're in their relationships. But I'm there to just create a safe space of alternative pleasure of and pleasures well encompassed of sensory, rolling the hands up and down the arm, slowing their breath down, dripping hot wax, or bonding them in cuffs. For them, that is safety. For other
Right.
people, it's very triggering. And that is
Hmm.
okay too, right?
Right.
But it's people who want to take their power back from a shit experience that they had, living the same thing, but with a safe human, safe words, and a safe nervous system so it doesn't haunt them throughout their day.
Right.
So that's why
Which
I
is
got,
pretty amazing because
yeah.
people with trauma, especially, you don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
You don't want to let people know how you're feeling or what you'd like to do or what might make you feel better if it's out of the norm because people talk shit.
Yeah.
So I love that you are creating that space. How would they know? And I'm ignorant to this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like how would someone know like if that is something somebody does fantasize about or they do like that or they're like groups that people go to? Is there stuff online or like how would they find you?
Yeah, so I do have a website and stuff like that. So I
Okay.
work with a company called Session Girls and
Okay.
everything. Everyone is completely vetted. That's what's beautiful. Everyone's vetted, everyone's background checked. Even with clients that I
Okay.
take on, I background check you, I vet you, ensure my safety.
Sure.
Yeah, so I have a website that people go through, but I also go to events. So if it's a BDSM event, like a performance event, people who
Okay.
go to those, like if you're going to an ice cream shop, you like ice cream, right? If you go to a
Right. Right.
BDSM event, you clearly like BDSM.
Right.
So it's a networking kind of a
Is that
thing.
what you did in Vegas?
Yeah, that's what I did
Okay.
in Vegas. So
Okay.
I went out, I performed. I performed different crazy artistic scenes. I was a funny enough psychiatric psych ward clown patient. Funny. That's like one of my characters that I play because that's how I
Right.
felt as a younger kid. So I have a safe space for her expression.
Okay.
So where I let her out to heal while I
Right.
can still be me. So I did that out there, but then I network of people they'll see through the website I go through, Session Girls. They find me Mistress Roulette, Mistress Raven Roulette, and my menu
Okay.
is there. This is what I do. This is what I provide. Bondage, impact, and I have like this is negotiations. You email me, we do a medical check. I do medical checks. Like, do you have any history of A, B, C, and D? If you
Okay.
do, get clearance by your doctor. So many think it's just like someone coming up to me and they're like, whip me. And I'm like, yeah. I call myself a safety slut. Like, I'm gonna be safe. Like, nah. Like, we're going to have
Yeah.
fun, but let's be safe. So yeah, it's through
Right.
events people find me, promotion
Okay.
on the website. And then it's an interview process to see like, where are you at with your trust? Where are you at in therapy? If they want to come to me, because it's on my menu of like, I want to reframe drowning that I went through to do some water therapy. I'll be like, okay, have you done footwork in actual talk therapy? If their answer is no, I won't take on the client because that's a liability for me
Sure.
that I need to know they've done some work so it doesn't open up a can to me to where I don't know what their reaction is going to be.
Yeah.
So it's safety is always first. I have yet to have an in-person dangerous client ever, because
Well, you guys are really vetting them too.
we're
So,
vetting them at all of
yeah.
our events. We vet them. So yeah, events, online networking, um, either social media. I got to be careful what social media sites, because when I say I'm a dominatrix, I'm also a submissive. I do performance submissive work. But if you say that, I'm labeled automatically, even though I'm not having sex with my clients, I'm a sex worker.
Oh,
And then I'm illegal because I'm providing an alternative service that means pleasure, even though I'm not touching their sexual organs. It's really interesting.
yeah.
So it's a very interesting taboo arena, but I decided to bring the mental health aspect into that arena because I saw what it did for me. I took everything from my neurolinguistics. I'm an NLP coach, NLP practitioner, and have a psychology background. So I decided to take those and go, wow, how do we do neuroplasticity? Like, how do we reformat the brain with a former traumatic experience with now a positive one? And how do we anchor the states into the body? Let's do it. I got the tattoo fuck around and find out on me for a reason, right? Like, I believe in limitless possibilities. I just want to do anything and everything to help with the mind of myself and or an individual to become the best versions of themselves, so they're not a prison of their trauma, because they're not their trauma. They're how they overcame.
And you've truly lived a lot of traumatic experiences, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So how did how did Raven Roulette come about?
So Raven Roulette essentially came about to be the badass bitch that Sarah Gillette couldn't be.
Okay.
Sarah Gillette, I've now done more embodying, and I'm still doing the integration work of her as my little my little child. Sarah Gillette was the one who went through all the trauma, who went through all the pain, who went through all the loss. And when I found BDSM, everyone created a new name because it was like their space to just like be this crazy stuff. And also they wanted to protect their identity, maybe from being a lawyer, being a doctor. It was like their separate space, right?
Right.
And so going in the BDSM industry, I had to choose a name, and I was like, what do I choose? I went through Onyx because I was like something dark and seedy.
Right.
But ravens truly, literally always found me growing up. They would always follow me, always. And I was a very intuitive, clairsentient child, and had different knowings. And I chose Raven. Also, I feel like I was a bird in my past lifetime and will be reincarnated because it represents to me the spreading of my wings. That even if I feel like I'm stuck to the ground, I still have a place to go. And so as this character, I was like, okay, I'm like, now who is she? So I literally sat down and I wrote down, I constructed. And then roulette came from take a shot to see what you can get. It was either roulette gambling or Russian roulette, because it came off from having a gun held to my head with one bullet in it and going, we're going to see if you die. So that was my version of taking my power back. I was like, okay, you did that to me. I'm going to own it and claim it now. You have no power over me. So Raven Roulette was the relentless, empowered, divine goddess woman who knew her worth, who spoke her truth. I literally wrote down to create, who do I want to be and step into? And so every event I went to, that's how I showed up. And I said, okay, if you can show up as her in your sessions and at an event, then you can integrate Raven Roulette into loving little Sarah.
Oh.
So that
God, that's so
was
deep.
that was my cycle. And some people just choose a name because they love it.
Right,
I'm
right,
like, I'm
right.
so deep. But for me,
Right.
it was, I couldn't show up as a dominatrix for me at the time as Sarah Jo, because for me, when I thought of Sarah, I was like the girl who was rejected, the girl who was so afraid, the girl who got
Yeah.
raped, the girl, all that. And I was like, oh no, Raven Roulette, she's a badass. She don't take shit, but she's loving
Right.
and kind. She's a sensitive soul, and she sees you and she guides you. And but then it came to the point in the industry where like I live in the lifestyle of BDSM. I'm a 24/7 where I have submissives and in different DS dynamics, dominant submissive dynamics in my life.
Okay.
So I live the life 100%. So I kind of got lost in the sauce of losing Sarah. And I was like, oh shit. And then I had some things that come up, that abusive relationship that came back into my life a year and a half ago, where he was hella abusive, very narcissistic, manipulative, where I was ending up with a knife to my chest on the bed a year ago, going, it was literally like, if I can't have you, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to kill myself. And he's like, if I can't have you, I'm going to kill myself. It was disgustingly toxic and gaslighting and manipulative. And so I was in the darkness of my shadows, and I was just Raven Roulette, forgetting my true core of Sarah.
Okay.
And he utilized everything against me in the BDSM industry. He took my entire knowledge that I had to masterfully manipulate me, to desire me to kill myself. And I stepped away from the BDSM industry because everything that I loved in the industry, that I loved having practiced against me, I let him do because I trusted him. And then he used it to abuse me and literally leave me cold and on the floor in a hotel room while I found out he was secretly married for 19 years. And after the physical abuse, the mental, psychological abuse, I literally was like, how the fuck did you let this happen again? And not like, oh, fuck you. Like, I can't believe
Right.
I believe ownership. I was like, where did you slide? Where did you slide? And it was, I forgot my little Sarah. I forgot my little girls. And my ego came into play. And I was missing my family. I was missing my father, daddy issues. And I saw a man in power that loved everything that I did. And he was an authority figure. And in my opinion, it did massive disgrace to our country. And so Raven Roulette, though, at the time, even though I lost little Sarah, Raven Roulette, the girl who's empowered, who doesn't take shit, she saved my life. Genuinely, because I feel a year and a half ago from all this was probably one of the worst abuses I've ever went through, even with being raped, being younger. Because it was literally everything that I went through in my abuse from those years encompassed into 4 months.
And it was somebody you learned to trust.
Yeah, with this one human in a relationship. And he was a dark psychology master. And I don't know if you know the 48 Laws of Power. You know that book? Mm-hmm. That was his Bible. Yeah. And so...
How'd you find out he was married?
Through looking on his social media. And I looked at him in the car. We were driving. And I was just open. Because at this point, we both knew we were being... I played my part. I was very manipulative to him as well, too. Massively, because I wanted what I wanted, because he was being abusive. I was like, I got you. Like, you play the game, I'll be better. Right? And I looked at him and I said, so you're married? And he looks at me and he goes, I told you I would never lie to you. And it was the craziest shit. Everything in my system, I just froze. I'm not a freezer when it comes to shit like that. I froze and I was like, oh shit, you're right. He told me he would never lie to me. But no, you're lying. And I was like, Raymond, oh, we just did it. I was like, Raymond, I was like, really? I was like, you have a wife. And he's like, you know this. You know that I have a wife. It's on my social media. Like the whole little like creepy fucking doll shit. And I was
Like,
like,
you're the crazy one. What are you talking about?
yeah. But it
Like,
was that imprinting and the dependency was already there. He massively imprinted me. I would be blacked out, knocked out while he was still fucking me and imprinting me, coming to being fucking massively scared, then be like, you're fine, and then doing it again. And I'm lending you to the world, baby girl, but you're mine. So I found out and I stuck one more month because I was like, it was literally like, if I leave, one, like, how can I go on? Like, how do I go on? I have never been like that. I'm so dependent upon you. But he gave me everything I wanted. Everything I wanted for the good and for the toxic. And it came to a point when we were in a hotel room, he was leaving, and it was one of the worst abusive evenings that we had. It was all sexually. It was consenting, and then in the middle, while I was KO'd in my submissive subby space, when you're in submissive space, you're like, la da 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 da, everything's great. Yeah, do that to me, daddy. Like,
right.
you're in that space when it's not consenting. And I remember waking up terrified from blackout at the hotel, and I was just like, this is literally every single abuse I have ever been through. And I was like, how could you let this happen to you? And I was shaming myself. And then he came to me at 4 a.m, leaving the hotel room. And he goes, I love you, pretty girl. I love you. But you know, this is what I have to do. And he literally just walked right out of the hotel room. Never came back. Blessing.
Yeah, but gosh.
But then the wife called me the next week. And she goes, I was just calling you to let you know that you two can have each other. And I was like, oh shit, I'm dying. I was like, I'm afraid of you, bitch.
Yeah.
But then I had compassion because she told me, she's like, I've been going through this for 19 years. And I was like, damn. He's done this multiple times, clearly by the human he is. He used, unfortunately, his power for that. I feel power in the hands of the right person. Yes, serve our country, you're amazing. Serve our humans, you're amazing. But if it's in the wrong person, you're going to destroy everything.
Yeah.
And so it took, I would say, a year. I was heavily disassociated and blacking out cognitively.
Really?
Multiple times, to where I would look at my friends, and I looked and I would cry to my friends. I was like, please tell me I'm okay. And I was like, you have to remove the knives from the house. Everything. Like, I wanted to kill myself. And more so, I genuinely, at the time, with how unhealed I was, I wanted to murder him. I really did. And I had no problem saying that. I wanted to watch him die. And I was like, this isn't you. This is not you. I had to go through the depths of intensive therapy, and it was hard because I couldn't afford it at the time. I didn't have health insurance. And so I was like, you made it through those, you can do it through this. And so
were you angry at like his abandonment, or just that he was able to pull one over on you? Like, what were your thoughts when it came to him? Obviously you wanted to murder him. So and you think he's an asshole, like, completely.
I was angry that I let myself slide so much on my mental health that I had an intuition. When I first met him, my gut intuition was like, Raven. And I was like, no, he can be good. So I was more angry at myself.
Okay.
My first layer of anger was myself, because like I knew. But the reason why I went for him was because I let go of my mental health. In a mentally healthy standpoint, you know your worth, period.
Right.
Like, and you're not going to settle. I let go of my mental health because that's what I felt like I was deserving. And that was it. And then as time went on, 6 months afterwards, like as I'm still trying to heal, still feeling like it was yesterday, um, I was angry at him because I couldn't go places and see a red Camaro without thinking of him, smelling a certain scent, being in any place and environment, thinking he was going to come back for me to haunt me. Like, because
Okay.
he's a psychological abuser.
Right.
And so a year and a half went by. And then just recently, 3.5 weeks ago,
No.
he found me on my private, small, itty bitty Instagram. I had just finished a conversation of loving compassion with my current partner. And then all of a sudden, the end of the year, he sent me a message. The message was a song by Sleep Token called Ascensionism. Love them. Our love language was speaking to each other in songs and music, even trauma. And the song essentially is all about mental and psychological abuse of how he has power over me and I will never win. And I listened and I broke. I immediately called my best friend. I was like, ground me now. Ground me now. It was a 3-day hell for me because it was interesting because it literally felt like I was reliving everything again. I was afraid to leave my house. I was afraid to open up my social media because I looked on the app where you can see who's viewed your shit. Motherfucker's been watching my page every single day. So he's been watching every one of my steps. Because the
He's still
song,
doing it?
now I don't know. I had to stop away from it because it was driving me crazy because I was driving myself insane. Because I was like, why am I doing this right now?
Right.
Because he also serves on Pendleton where my current partner is, which is crazy. So it's a very interesting thing. So when that happened, it sparked me to publish my book. Because the encompassing of all of that, the only thing, again, that kept me alive in that time was embodying Raven Roulette, this character I built, and writing. So I'm a poet. I've always been a poet my entire life. I've always been a writer. I have thousands of them. And I wrote the darkest and the depths of shadow poetry where I didn't care what I wrote. I was like, you have no filter. You are safe. You are fine. It's just a thought. Get it out because if you keep it here, you are going to die.
Right.
And so I kept them all. And with the beauty of the empowerment my current partner has given me, helped me see the beauty in my art of my poetry. And I said, you know what? No more. I'm not hiding you anymore. I am not hiding myself anymore. I am going to publish this book. I have 22 passages from beginning to end of everything I went through, the struggles, the triumphs, the darkness of everything and my sadistic shit I went through, his sadistic stuff, and then the light of my rebirth. And I said, okay, we're going to publish this book. And because of publishing this book, one, it's giving my voice back. You don't have power over me anymore. You never did. I just decided to psychologically give it away, right?
Right.
And when March is when I'm tentatively getting everything published, when people purchase this book, it's going to come with a huge slew of resources for mental health. My mission is to raise mental health awareness for people who are in the industry that I'm in, but primarily for active duty Marines and veterans. Because what I went through, I saw what was missing. It's not that I hate it when people bash fucking military. It's not the military. It's not the Marines at all. It's the lack of resources they are given for their mental health, whether on their own or there. So I went, okay, is there a problem? There's a problem. Let me find the solution. I've gone through all of this shit for a reason. I have seen it firsthand. I've been affected. I've seen the wife of a Marine. I have had my partners be in war. I know what it's like to have your partners away for a long time. I know what it's like to have an abusive partner. I know what it's like to have a beautiful, healthy, amazing, supportive partner for a Marine as well. And so with that being stated, is I decided to work together with my current partner to get resources. So when people buy this book, they will have complete free resources for mental health, multiple resources and tools given to them. And I want to have all these proceeds genuinely go towards bringing in an awareness to take care of your mental health, because at the end of the day, your mess is your message. And I want people to be seen, because I want to just be a voice, because some people have not survived what I've been through.
Right.
And some people feel like they are still in it. So I feel if sharing my message, then it can give them hope to know that they can make it.
Do most of the people in the industry, like that you're around, do they know what you're doing? Do they know your book's coming out and what a powerful message you already have? Do they know about that, or do you keep that separate?
It's come out more. I hid it for a while. But again, especially this past year, God has been like, integrate, baby, use your voice, open up your throat chakra. So yes, I've reached out to a lot of different ones. So I work very close with friends who are therapists, for ones who are in the industry, like dedicated therapists, for ones who are dom, subs, sex workers, all this stuff, to help them keep a healthy mindset. So I've reached out to them. I work with a different volunteer work at a veterans association called Oath the Country. So they're going to be a resource for me. So I have just been shooting it out there. I'm like, hey, I'm shooting my shot. I have this book. My mission is not to be like, this is what I went through. My mission is to be like, this is what can happen if you don't take care of mental health. And now here are the resources that you feel like you don't have. So I've been very open with it. I've been pushing it. I've been sharing my poetry on different platforms. So like, hey, here's a poetry drop of what's going to be in my book. My book is called I Should Have.
I know. I need to see some of that poetry.
I
can only
I'll
imagine.
send it to you.
Yay.
But my book is I Should Have Murdered You When I Had a Chance. That's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
It's like, because I was so afraid of like using this taboo title, and I was like, why? Like, there's Stephen King. There's a whole bunch of crazy demo gnarly shit like that's out there. Why can't I share a real life story?
Yeah.
But it was my like, again, back to the religion. Religion, you don't do that. I'm like, nah, bitch. We overcome all religious indoctrination. We think for ourselves. We feel for ourselves. We move for ourselves. Your mess is your message. Do not entertain the thoughts in your head of your trauma. Recognize it. See what tools you have. Heal in public. And know you're going to be okay if you never give up. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Well,
You're doing so much good, girl. So now you just did say some really awesome things, but if there was like one more thing that you would really want people to take from this, have at it. Let's hear it. Wow. Take a minute too.
Yeah.
And while you're thinking, I'll also say that we'll make sure, like with your book and stuff, that we put that in the description.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me see. One thing that I would tell people. One message.
Maybe when you think back to little Sarah and how she felt and how she felt alone, and there's so many other people right now in that same position.
You know, it's interesting. Like, I started to think of what's something crazy profound, but I was like, you know what? Sometimes the most simple thing. So this is in what I would say, because what I've started to incorporate is the first. It's a 2-part one thing. is do not heal in private. Heal out loud. Whether that's just with a friend, whether that's in therapy, please do not heal behind a closed door, because you will succumb to the demons that do not even exist in the stories inside of your head, and you will convince that they are real. Do not heal in private. Be open. Be open. And attached to that really is, if you went to the doctor and the doctor told you you had 1 year left to live, how differently would you live your life? Now look at your life and see where you're half-assing. Look at your life and see where you're not living with full passion. Look at your life and see where you're not opening your heart to the people you love. Look at your life and see where you truly can do more, because you literally never know. Mark the date, because when the next year starts, live your life as such too. Mm-hmm. So those are my mottos that I live up. Live and heal in public. Do not hide. Do not be ashamed. Do not be ashamed at all.
That's exactly why we're doing this.
Do not be ashamed. Shame can take your life.
Absolutely.
And even if you can't think of a year from now, like, what if you're given 6 months? Mm-hmm. And that's all you have. If you only have a certain time to live your experiences, I can't emphasize it enough, because I'm currently going through something right now that I have a very limited time constraint with some people in my life, and I am taking a vow to live wholeheartedly. And so you really see where you can do more, and you experience so much more joy.
Right.
So those are my messages.
And hopefully you have less regret too for not using that time, because it's something we never get back.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Live your life out loud, because it's beautiful.
You're amazing. I love it. I love it. I love it. We're definitely going to have you on again too 6 months from now, because
I'm going to come out there next time.
Yes.
I'm
Would
coming
you?
Oh, I swear. If I know literally genuinely like within the next month, I am coming out. I will book work out there. I 100% will, because I would love to be immersed and just like be there and just really connect and bring what you guys are doing to the fore, because it is amazing. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being so vulnerable. I know it's not easy. And I have to keep saying this too, because, I haven't even told my story yet, because probably shame.
Yeah.
All the things, and for whatever reason. But even listening to you right now gives me more like, I got to get this done. I have to do it. Like, live now, and do it out loud.
Yeah.
And I think that I've just been petrified.
I will hold your hand.
Girl, I will take you up on that.
I'll give you a hug. I'll hold you the whole time while you do it.
Perfect.
I appreciate
this has been amazing. Yes. And I know this definitely it's gonna help a lot of other people too. This was deep. It was
very deep. Yeah.
Yeah. And congratulations for being who you are today, because that takes a lot. People don't realize it's a lot of work.
I think it's just, if we tell ourselves, we don't even think one more day. We go, if I can get through this second. Yeah. If you still have breath, you still have hope.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. We're going to leave it at that.
Yes.
And hopefully I'll see you soon.
Yes, you will.
Okay, honey. Thank you.
Love you. Mwah.
Love you. You're awesome. I absolutely love it.